Welcome back to the deep dive. This is where we take sources you send us, dive deep, and pull out the key stuff so you can get up to speed quickly.
Yep. And today we're looking at a YouTube transcript you sent over from Hypnoza Zapisi Sesci. It's called Odpowiadami na Wasai na Chests Pytania plus Vatican.
Right. And our mission here is really to explore the picture of reality presented in this hypnotic session. We're going to focus on those listener questions that came up, stuff about control, energy.
And this really intriguing idea about maybe finding a way out of what they're calling the matrix.
Yeah, it's a fascinating material. Could be quite paradigm shifting for some people.
Definitely provocative stuff.
Okay, so let's just jump right in. The big one, the question that seems central here is basically, is there a way out? People seem to be grappling with this idea of a constructed reality.
And what's interesting in the session is this idea that the illusion, this matrix, it doesn't need everything happening inside it to keep going.
Okay, so how does it work then?
It's more about managing energy, apparently. Focusing on the core structures, the framework, not sweating every single little detail, you know?
So like foundational energy flows rather than micromanagement.
Exactly. That's the sense you get from the transcript.
Okay. And this is where it gets, well, really interesting for me. The session suggests we are the ones actually propping it up.
Yeah.
It's not some external force pulling strings, but our own actions, our own beliefs.
That's the core idea. Think about, following rules, registering your car, the systems we participate in.
Even enforcing them, police, military.
Exactly. The transcript says the system is almost like an idea we all just agree to uphold. The control works through us, not on us.
Right.
And apparently, the energy we use for just our day-to-day lives, relatively small potatoes compared to what keeps the whole structure humming.
So the key is maintaining the framework, and we power that framework.
That seems to be the takeaway. Our participation is the fuel.
So the mastery isn't some external controller, it's us. We keep it alive without realizing it.
That's the implication. We follow the rules, pay the bills, often out of fear, right? Fear of what happens if we don't.
Like the system gives us something, maybe something we helped create, and then threatens to take it away, so we scramble to protect it, feeding it energy.
Precisely. And that perceived authority, like the police example in the transcript.
Yeah.
It only exists because we collectively agree it does. We grant them that power by believing in it. It's a social construct, fundamentally.
It sounds so simple when you put it like that. Just stop participating.
Well, yeah. The session literally suggests that. Stop paying, stop obeying, metaphorically hand back the uniform.
But actually doing that, that's the hurdle.
Huge hurdle. Because we're creatures of habit, we depend on the system. And there's that deep, deep fear of loss, fear of the unknown, of problems.
And social pressure too, right? The transcript mentions neighbors reporting neighbors.
The system regulates itself through us. Our own beliefs and how we interact socially, they become these powerful checks and balances.
Okay, shifting gears slightly, what about our role? The session seems to downplay the idea of, like, literal external demons controlling us.
Right. It frames it more as us internalizing assumptions, beliefs imposed by the system, and then acting them out. Some people are really invested in keeping things as they are.
And others just go along out of fear, maybe.
Fear, powerlessness, maybe just inertia.
Okay. And what about this creator concept? Does the session say we leave when the creator pulls the plug on the whole project?
It touches on that, but then flips it. It asks, what if we are the creator? Or maybe a group of creators, the demiurge, as it's sometimes called.
The demiurge,
Yeah.
like a subordinate creator.
Yeah, and Gnostic traditions often seen that way.
Yeah.
But here the idea floated is maybe we collectively are that creative force, and we delegated the running of this experience to others so we could jump in and participate.
Whoa, okay. So if we accepted that we are the creator, could that be the way out?
It's suggested as a possibility, a potential key, but not guaranteed, The transcript stresses you'd have to actually test that, live it, see if fully owning that creative power changes things.
So our self-perception is fundamental here.
It seems to be. And it also hints there might be other stuff influencing us, things in our consciousness we're not even aware of.
Like what?
It mentions a potential tipping point. Maybe the illusion could burn out. Maybe if enough of us withdraw our attention, our energy, stop feeding it, like turning off a projector. If no one's watching, does the movie still exist in the same way?
So could we just let go, disappear right now?
The session's answer is pretty blunt. Yes. It connects to this idea that our true self might be outside this whole thing. We're just playing roles here.
Connected to other parts of ourselves beyond this reality.
That's the implication. Our current identity might just be one piece of a much bigger puzzle.
Okay, so decisions. What if everyone just consciously decided, okay, I'm staying or I'm leaving? Would that work?
The feeling in the session is complex. It suggests many have decided to leave internally, but they're still here.
Why?
Because a purely mental decision might not cut it. There are emotions, attachments, subconscious stuff holding us. The transcript says the decision needs to be totally unconditional, no safety nets, no I'll leave next Tuesday, no looking for reassurance.
Just a clean break.
Yeah. And the exit itself should then be simple, almost effortless.
What about love? Loving people in our lives, does that help or hinder?
It's tricky, according to the source. Could motivate you, give you strength, but it could also make you want to stay connected to the game.
Anchors versus springboards.
Kinda. And same with just like savoring life, having fun.
That's bad.
Not bad, but potentially risky. You could get addicted to the experience, the feeling of control, maybe even attached to being special within the system. But it's not saying detach completely. It does talk about consciously taking what you value from life, but without becoming dependent, living fully, generating energy of happiness. Because, and this is a huge point in the session, we've apparently forgotten that the real source of energy isn't outside us, it's within.
Each of us.
Each person is a source, projecting energy out into the matrix. That feeling of lack, always needing something external, that's presented as artificial.
So we're taught to, like, steal energy from each other instead of generating our own.
That seems to be the idea, through power dynamics, arguments, needing validation, all that stuff. But as a source, you don't need to take, you just radiate, like the sun.
And that source energy, that's our true self.
That's what the session suggests, our fundamental being.
This then leads into talk about souls, and maybe some people not having them.
Yeah, it's a controversial idea I mentioned.
Yeah.
That some individuals might lack that deeper connection, that soul essence. Identifying them is supposedly intuitive.
Yeah.
A feeling you get.
Oh.
The transcript suggests they might be very logical, stick to known facts, lack that inner flow of wisdom beyond learned patterns, often very invested in the matrix, defending it.
Kind of like NPCs in a game.
That's the analogies used, sometimes calling them bots. Human bodies, minds, but maybe without the connection to higher consciousness. Like sophisticated AI. It even mentions some speculative research suggesting maybe only 20% have souls.
Wow. Okay. Distinguishing human from human being.
Exactly. It's a specific distinction made in the source.
And this matrix software, is it like a program running in our heads?
Not quite in them as a separate thing, more like implemented into our minds or being. And it only gets power when we recognize it, accept it, live by it, like deeply ingrained beliefs or social conditioning.
And self-love, is that the key out? Some people say that.
Interestingly, no. The section actually warns it could be destabilizing. It suggests inner silence, stillness is more likely to make the external stuff fade.
Okay. What about dualism? Good versus bad? Why do we experience that?
Part of the learning process, the session suggests. Learning to discern, though maybe true certainty about good-bad is itself part of the illusion here.
So it feels real within the matrix.
Very real. But from a higher perspective, maybe it's just balance.
And trusting yourself, if you could do that completely, would everything just fall into place?
Potentially. But it has to be absolute trust, no doubt. The transcript points out that even asking the question, should I trust myself, kind of shows you don't, not fully. It reveals a reliance on this reality for answers.
So how do you even start to get out if there are blocks, limitations we believe in?
The answer given is kind of startling. Don't start.
Don't start.
Yeah, just disappear. The idea is that making it a process just conditions you further, leads to endless searching, more entanglement. Like humanity's been trying processes for ages.
So instead of a process, what? Stillness.
Total stillness, emptiness. That's one path mentioned, like some Tibetan monks trying to detach from all the matrix stimuli through deep meditation, disconnecting the energetic threads tying you to situations.
But the body, that's a big anchor, isn't it?
Huge. Even if you withdraw from society, the body's still there. And the fear of death.
Which the system programs into us.
According to the session, yes. That's a massive obstacle. Fear of the unknown after death, fear of suffering during departure, reinforced by healthcare systems, even our own grief feeds this death construct.
Right. And egregores, you mentioned energy.
Yeah, these are like collective energy pools built from our shared thoughts and emotions. That energy then fuels things in our reality.
So reality isn't just physical, it's built on energy
A
agreements.
lot of it, yeah. And big egregores, think nationalism, religion, finance, they act like guardians of the system. Their sheer energy can overwhelm individuals trying to wake up.
Can you change the energy, like poison a happy egregore with negativity?
The session implies yes.
Yeah.
Energy can be affected, shifted, which leads to the idea of consciously putting out joy, not fear, to maybe disrupt the system's food source.
So it's not a perpetual motion machine, it needs our fuel.
Definitely not perpetual. We power it. If we stop, it stops. That's the message.
What about imagination, visualizing things we've never seen? Where does that come from?
Often from outside the system, the transcript suggests. Artists are maybe good at tapping into that. Or maybe we remember stuff from other games, other lives, connecting to a wider information space.
And the voice of the heart, intuition. Can the Matrix mess with that?
It can try, mainly by drowning it out with noise, information overload, emotional chaos.
And our own minds can trick us.
Oh yeah. The mind can mimic the heart's voice, rationalize things, lead you back to safety, back into the game's logic. But the session insists true heart intuition is usually right. You just have to test it, follow it.
Is the mind just primitive then?
Not necessarily primitive, but maybe. Constructed for purpose. Sufficient for playing the game effectively, especially since we're usually so engaged with the game. Its limits are part of the design.
Okay. Now, there was a shift in the session, right, towards the Vatican.
Yes, the subject changed, but the person apparently remained in that hypnotic state.
And the energy around the Vatican, what was perceived?
Darkness, paralyzing fear. The word demonic was used.
And looking back about 5 days before, around Easter Monday, what was the feeling then?
A sense of waiting, like the Pope's death was anticipated, expected soon.
So the timing of the announcement wasn't seen as accidental.
No, it felt like everything was leading up to that specific point.
Was the death itself seen as some kind of message?
Hard to say definitively if it was a direct message. The feeling was it would be interpreted differently by different groups, followers, elites, those with other levels of understanding, or maybe signaling a transition.
A transition to a new phase.
Potentially, yes.
And the actual time of death. When was that felt to be?
About maybe 2.5 days before the official announcement came out.
Which raises the question, who gave the blessing on Easter Sunday?
The session suggested it probably wasn't him, maybe a recording, a retransmission, or even an impersonator. An illusionist creating a representation. The person there wasn't felt to be the Pope.
Okay. And looking ahead for the church.
The strong feeling of big changes coming. Changes that will likely cause a lot of upset. Maybe shifts in core principles, leading to dissatisfaction, maybe even a schism, outrage from some corners.
Changes that harm the church itself.
Yes, detrimental to the church as an institution, but seen as benefiting wider global interests. Maybe using the unrest to introduce new things.
And the Pope's soul, or popes in general, what was the sense there?
The perception was not human beings in that deeper sense we discussed earlier, neither the last one nor popes historically. The Vatican itself felt inhuman, filled with hordes of demons.
That's intense.
Yeah. It acknowledges some people within the church might be human, but certain consciousnesses there are felt to be deeply disturbed, demonic.
And the next pope.
Also perceived as demonic, but likely projecting a very gentle, kind image. A facade.
So the significance of this pope's death announcement, it's less about him, more about what comes next.
That seems to be the takeaway. It's about the changes and the direction under the new leadership.
Wow. Okay, that was certainly a deep dive. A lot of really unconventional ideas packed in there.
Definitely. And I think the core message that comes through, despite all the wild details, is maybe not to get too tangled up in figuring out every single mechanism of this game.
Not to get stressed about it.
Right. The session emphasizes self-awareness as the real key. Knowing yourself.
And the rest of the matrix details, the egregores, the Vatican stuff, it's all kind of secondary to that inner understanding.
That seems to be the perspective offered, yeah. It's all interesting, potentially useful information, but the fundamental work is internal.
Well, thank you for joining us for this exploration. Hopefully it sparks some thoughts, maybe some questions for your own reflection.
Absolutely. And maybe a final thought to leave you with, based on everything we've discussed. If this reality is somehow self-maintained by our participation, what's one small, seemingly insignificant act of non-participation you could try that might just have a surprisingly big ripple effect? Something to mull over.